The princess. I believe that this man needs assistance from someone. An illustration of what not to do. This is my narrative. I wanted to share it, even though it might be a little disorganized and untidy. Although I'm still going through it, so far everything seems to be going well and I've gained a lot of knowledge from the process. I'm 25 years old. Before we were married, my wife and I were friends for almost 2 years. We were married almost 4 years ago. Not what we had planned, but about 3 months into our marriage, we became pregnant. Our shared Christian faith, in my opinion, has played a significant role in our healing. It was October 29th, D-Day. My wife was spotted at an ice skating rink alone with a man, and word of this was passed along to me by my brother-in-law. Later that evening, I questioned my wife about what he had told me. I was expecting an explanation or some kind of misunderstanding. It felt like a punch to the stomach what came next. She clarified that although there was supposed to be a group skating experience, when she arrived, there was just the guy, etc. The concerning aspect was that I sensed she wasn't providing me with all the information. I started to question her more, like if I should be worried about other guys. I started to feel sick when all she did in response was stare at me without making eye contact. I finally asked the big question, "Are you sleeping with someone else?" After a short while, I felt foolish even to inquire. Once more, silence. I started crying less and more like a shriek as I started to grieve. I started asking her more questions after a few minutes. I was particularly curious about how long, how often, and with whom. She refused to respond to any of my questions at first. She sat there in stark, almost silent quiet. She then started accusing me of not being her lover. She never did, in actuality, and I never loved her either. The worst part, possibly, was that she told me she enjoyed the, well, I honestly can't recall anything that happened that night, but that was the broad vibe. I cursed a few times, but I never called her names. I told her I needed my own space and walked away. I didn't feel good about leaving her like way and started to worry she would damage herself as soon as I stepped outside. I made the decision to tell her how I felt by going back inside. I told her I was terribly hurt, but I still loved her and wanted to sort things out when I went back inside. She started crying when I attempted to give her a hug. She told me to stop loving me and shoved me away. After a little while of mainly silent sitting, I informed her once more that I wanted to work things out but that I needed some space to myself for the night. And with that, I was off. That night, I stayed with my parents and didn't get any sleep. For the next 2 weeks, my parents looked after my son as well. My wife wasn't home when I returned early the following morning, even though we had already begun working on the matter. Not that I was shocked. She required consolation. Thus, she remained with the sole person who could provide her comfort. I called her the Om. She did not respond, but she promptly returned my call. I asked if she would come home and told her I wanted to talk, which she carried out. I completed a few housework tasks I had been meaning to do while I waited for her. The silence of doing nothing was too much for me. I considered my reply for her when she returned. It was all planned out by me. I ran outside to greet her as soon as I heard her car arrive in the driveway. I was struck with intense compassion for her as soon as I saw her. All I could do was give her an embrace as all I had intended to say and everything I had been experiencing faded away. With a few clear exceptions, I had the impression of the prodigal son's father. After going for coffee, we began talking about what had transpired. She didn't have the same attitude as she did the night before. She was much more forthcoming with everything. At the time I'm writing this, it has been a little over 5 weeks since I learned. It feels like a long time ago, yet I can't recall every detail of what transpired. It has felt like a week every day. I'll do my best to summarize everything in the most crucial sections. For me, the first week was the hardest. In that first week, I truly dropped almost 10 pounds and gained more than an inch on my waist. When I wasn't at work, I tried to spend as much time as possible with her, and planned out every waking hour of my life, including how I should feel and what I should do. We began by talking about what had transpired and her feelings. She essentially believed that she had married me out of infatuation, never truly loved me, and was miserable as a result of our union. She thought she wasn't attracted to me and that I didn't care about her. She desired adventure and to have a life of significance. She would quickly discover that her feelings were tainted and these feelings would start to change. Note that I said felt. The actual affair lasted for several months. She had dated the Om for a short while prior to dating me, and they had kept in touch on and off during our marriage. Although they had only been together twice, they had been spending a lot of time doing things that they both enjoyed. They went on a few dates during that time, as far as I can tell. Despite having multiple side jobs, my wife didn't actually have a job. She would either be teaching dancing lessons, gymnastics, or engaging in an activity like rock climbing on most weeknights. I was enrolled in 18 hours of classes, worked a full-time job, and took on some side gigs. Clearly, this was not the best of circumstances. She would frequently be seen by the Om at some of these events, which, ultimately, while I was working during the day, I found out about. She willingly saw an individual counselor for the first 2 weeks of our recovery, and we began visiting a marriage counselor. We just told a few of our close friends and her family members. We were also keeping it under wraps for the benefit of her family because her sister was getting married the week after I found out. During this period, we spent a lot of time together, and she made hazy promises to try to save our marriage and not to get in touch with the Om. However, she did get in touch with the Om and even saw him in person once or twice, though she made an effort to keep this information from me. When she told me she needed time apart one day over lunch, things really got out of hand. We had made up our minds to stick together and figure things out, so this really got to me. We had a conversation with her parents first, which we did at that very moment. I assured her that if she needed distance, I would provide it to her. Nevertheless, she made the decision to remain in the marriage. When she arrived home from work the following day, she wasn't exactly in the mood for me. At my residence, the Om was waiting for her. I learned about it when I noticed, via GPS monitoring, that she had been sitting for an extended period of time at a park near my house. When I called her, she didn't pick up. She didn't say anything when I played it cool when she called back. "You were at the park by yourself since," I asked her straight. She started crying and breaking down, stating she had no idea what to do, etc. She was yelling when I arrived home, so I told her how furious I was. Throughout the entire process, I was at my most irate with her. A day after she decided to stay with me, I told her that I couldn't believe she had lied to me once more. I thought I was foolish to have trusted her and that I ought to throw her out. However, I handed the ball to her. I told her to choose between staying with me forever and not. Tearful, she told me she wished for another opportunity. Even though I knew it was stupid and nonsensical, I chose to give her another chance. But isn't that what love is? I told her to call the Om and end her relationship with him immediately if she felt that way. She asked whether I wanted her to do that. Her initial statement, "My name is here," when she called, naturally rendered the remainder of her speech meaningless. I think I too lost it, seized the phone, and threatened to call the Om again if he didn't come to my house. She asked if she could phone the Om and explain what was going on when she called me the following day when I was at work. Since I really didn't have an option, I complied. Coming across as confident is far preferable to trying to manage, especially since controlling doesn't genuinely work. I'm not sure exactly what was discussed, but the 80-minute session went by quickly. My wife claims that she essentially informed the Om how she felt, which I'm sure includes her continued love for him and her resolve to improve our marriage. A great deal. I received a text message from the Om later that day informing me that our meeting was scheduled. Again, without really having an option, I complied. This guy could hurt me if he wanted to because he knows where I live. He also expressed his want for my wife to attend. I gave her the freedom to choose whether or not to come. She made the decision to attend. Our meeting place was a Starbucks. Arriving early, I chose an outdoor table and seated everyone so that my wife would be next to me and the Om would be on the other side of the table. I also invited my friend to watch the discussion from his vehicle. As I was unsure of the precise course of events, I left work right away. I had to meet my wife there, so my wife appeared a short while after the Om did. The Om told me it would be foolish to try anything and that he didn't want to fight me. He held off on engaging in a meaningful conversation until my wife arrived. When she finally did, he got ready with at least 5 mails. Written statement about our union and bond. I responded, "You've just read us a very carefully crafted lie." Once he was finished, "There is some truth to what you say, just as to every excellent lie. It's still a lie, though." After that, we spoke about a few of the topics he had raised. Throughout the conversation, I primarily tried to make my wife do the decision-making. I repeatedly assured her that I was not forcing her to stay in our marriage and that she was free to leave at any time. I could go on and on about this meeting, it was that distressing. However, what matters most is that my spouse departed with me. Things calmed down a little after that. She didn't see or communicate with the Om for the following week, if my memory serves me correctly, though they remained friends on Facebook and Instagram. However, based on my observations and inquiries, it appears that she didn't make any direct contact with him. She disregarded multiple texts he sent her. We were going to Miami at the end of that week for a little gig she had. We turned it into a mini vacation and had a great time hanging out. We were driving to Miami when she brought up the subject of separation once more. She claimed that in order to discover her desires and identity, among other things, she felt she needed time apart. I informed her that I didn't want to bring up the subject with her again or make her feel that way. I told her that wasn't appropriate if she was determined to work on our marriage. We needed to work on ourselves in the context of being together, and separation allowed people to work on themselves independently. As we went through this process, I informed her that there was flexibility in every aspect of our lives. Everything is subject to change, with the exception of our commitment to God, to our kid, and to each other. She vocally agreed with me, and this appeared to go over fairly well. When we returned from the vacation late on Saturday night, everything was going according to plan. But the following morning, things reached even another low. We were just lying in bed together when we woke up and we started talking about everything. In the end, she confided in me once more, saying that she felt the need for separation. Since I was at a loss for words at this point, I just told her, okay, which seemed to startle her. Over the course of the next few hours, we continued our conversation, and I essentially informed her that I really believe in the proverb, if you love something, set it free. The main message was that I believed it was time to let her go since I loved her. I said this while crying and pausing for a long time. I also reminded her that letting go of her meant letting go of my commitment to her, and that letting go of her was only a part of letting go of the marital love that sustained me during this battle on her behalf. That morning, we agreed to attend to church together and put off making a decision until after we had a little more discussion. After arriving at church, we both started crying in different areas of the building. We made no eye contact, spoke to each other, or sat near to each other. By the way, the subject of the morning's sermon was the significance of marital vows to God and their tie. That afternoon, she had a picture shoot and promised to speak with me when she returned. So I went to wait at my brother-in-law's house. Since her sister was the photographer, the photo session was definitely ended when she arrived at the house at around 6 o'clock. My wife had informed this sister about the affair, so she was also aware of it. Her sister informed me that my wife had gone to Starbucks to speak with her mother and that, when she was finished, she would phone one of us to come get her. My wife did not call after 2 hours. No one answered when her sister called. My calls and texts went unanswered. It was at this moment that I started to feel skeptical. When her sister went to check on her, she wasn't at Starbucks. Due to her lack of transportation and the fact that she was in downtown, she either chose to walk home or, in a foolish move, met the OMI who mistakenly believed she was trying to walk home and began driving through the downtown area to locate her. I went home to make sure she wasn't there because I couldn't find her. Naturally, she wasn't. I looked up her phone records and saw that she had made multiple calls to the OM that evening. I was mad at this point. Her parents agreed when I told them what had happened and that I intended to throw her out if she returned home. I waited for her to get home for hours on end. I was angry because I was very sure she was with him, but I was also frightened about her because I wasn't sure for sure. Sitting there, waiting to see her so I could throw her out, was actually sort of funny. She returned home at almost 11 o'clock, 30 p.m., and came across as earnest and solemn. She apologized to me for everything, including not being able to return home. She admitted to me that, although she realized she didn't deserve my affection or another opportunity, she still desired it. She informed me that she had taken the evening to somewhat organize herself. Until she was satisfied with her choice to be with me and was certain that it was what she wanted, she refused to return home. She declared her love for me and her willingness to go above and beyond to keep our marriage strong and win my affection. I decided to take her back in spite of my rage, mistrust, and the night's blatant logic. Her story contained a few glaring errors. Although she had spent a significant portion of that evening with the OM, her demeanor seemed to have changed. I believe that she didn't want that when I let her go because she recognized what she was losing. That night she had the chance to walk out, and I'm sure he tried to talk her out of it, but she stayed because that's what she really wanted. Things had significantly improved after that evening. The foundation was still uneasy, and she still experienced occasional moments of despair. Our mutual devotion to one another appeared to be strong. She got a text from the OM early on Thanksgiving morning. She didn't tell me about it and regrettably removed it. She offered me some flimsy excuse when I questioned her, but I told her I was furious about it. She apologized profusely and removed the OM from both her phone and social media accounts. Thanksgiving was awkward for the remainder of it, but it was also enjoyable. We went to a rock climbing gym the day after Thanksgiving, and I had a good feeling the OM would be there. He was. She made it her mission to be mine. She latched onto me, kissed me, and kept incredibly near. She told me how much she enjoyed doing things like that with me and how much she appreciated me going. The OM contacted her on Tuesday of this week, the following week, from an unblocked line, and they spoke for around an hour. She independently told me about it. She is aware that I looked through the phone records and found that their conversation was essentially the same as it has been in the past. He wanted to make sure she was still in love with him and to find out if she had changed her mind. I told her how angry I was that she had spent so much time talking to him. After we had a long conversation, she made some self-pitying remarks to me. In the end, she realized she was being conceited and unappreciative of what she had. After that, things became heated, but overall, I believe it was a constructive discussion. The OM will undoubtedly call back, and we'll see how she responds. That is essentially it. We are now modern. Although extremely difficult, things appear to be moving in the correct way. When she tells me she loves me and that she is committed to me, I believe her. She seems to be starting to come to terms with what love is and how to define herself. In the process, I've discovered a lot about myself as well. When I learned, I felt incredibly weak and defenseless. Despite my strong desire to make things work, I now feel as though I will be content no matter what. I plan to increase my posting frequency and keep updating my story. I might even take the time to tidy it up a bit. It is my hope that someone going through a similar scenario may find hope in this. Though I am aware that I am not yet out of the woods, I have a strong sense that all will work out. Remarks: I'm a Christian too, man, and your narrative almost makes me feel ill. You are a doormat if this is indeed the true tale. She is a cake eater since she was struck by a blowgun far more frequently than twice. Even though you're doing everything incorrectly, at least you're content with it. Even though you don't want to be a doormat, you are a happy plan B, thus I don't think I will be giving you any advice. You are what you do or don't do together. There are no consequences for the way your wife has treated you. There seems to be a hopeful potential of success in your title. I'm not sure where you're getting that notion, but you could not be further from the truth. During your meeting, the Om read you a lengthy speech detailing the problems in your marriage. And all you could do was meet him, hear him out, and sort of agree to some of it. And all you can do is threaten your wife with dire consequences and ask her to come back to you. Not in my opinion. I believe you should educate yourself on the art of the 180, which essentially entails giving up on expecting her to change her mind, come running back into your arm after abandoning you forever, as well as stopping calling her family to vent about her and asking her to choose between you and someone else. Because it isn't going to happen based on what you have written here and how you have handled the problem up to this point. You have not gained any respect from your conduct, even if she decides to end the affair. She won't truly return if you don't respect her and there are no repercussions for her behavior, which naturally implies that she'll probably repeat the act, either with this guy or someone else. Opus says, "Wow, I really appreciate all of your direct and honest responses. You have to know that I'm aware of the complaints leveled against my behavior in this place. All I'm doing is choosing to put my faith in her once more because I think my married partner still exists. A person who aspires to morality. Probably the most worrying thing about all that has been said thus far is that she might stop respecting me. It will require some time to ascertain that. I understand your perspective, and I did read about the 180 and consider heeding your counsel. But I felt it was better to find a middle ground between being firm and supporting her. I'm aware that I've given her 3 or 4 more chances, but the only reason I haven't given up is because she has always returned with a stronger commitment than before. I know it seems silly, and maybe it is, but if I had thrown her out after her contrite return, I don't think I could have lived with myself. Regarding being respected, that is something I worry about. Though it appears that the majority of people on this channel don't agree, I believe that everything I have done so far is courteous, and I hope that she feels the same way. I regret giving her so many opportunities, but given my circumstances, it seemed like the correct course of action. To a certain degree, I'm being a doormat. True enough, but there's only so much I can handle. I've informed her that I'll be done if she calls or sees him again. I had reached that stage the day I told her I was letting her go. We are still together simply because she returned with a different mindset. Honestly, I have no idea what a hyper-beta is. I wish for the prosperity of our partnership as well. Any relationship that experiences an affair has, in my opinion, varied. Rather long odds. I believe that the things I've done thus far are appropriate for my circumstances. They are the ones I can live with, at the very least. I track her with a GPS that she also phones, so I know she's not still screwing me up. Sends me regular texts to see how I'm doing. Moreover, I never said that I couldn't live with myself if I expelled her. I meant that if I did something before I thought it was the correct moment, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I disagree and don't think it was right to throw her out after she expressed regret. This is a true tale, and thank you for your feedback. I find it difficult to hear from so many highly knowledgeable people that I handled this poorly. However, I am receptive to feedback and eager to absorb new information from others. While I won't promise to behave differently, I will state that I am paying attention and considering what is being said. I believe your perspective is clouded by your personal circumstances. To obtain a better overall picture, you must be 50 feet above the ground. I realize it's easier said than done. Be hard on yourself. Make an effort to separate. You have to give it a shot. Either you pay a minor price up now, or you pay a large price down the road if you don't separate. God, you're 25 years old. Give up destroying your future now. One of the cruelest burdens you choose to bear on your own shoulders is an unfaithful wife. Why are you doing it, and for whom? A man who lacks self-respect is not respected by women. If you want to do something for your child, let them know that people shouldn't treat them like meat and that your wife's behavior isn't acceptable in a normal, healthy relationship. Even better, don't use your child's welfare as an excuse for your pitiful and weak behavior. Instead, be the victim and accept responsibility for your actions. Opus replies, I appreciate your candor, but I don't think anything I've done is particularly weak or pathetic. It would be much simpler to declare it ended. Remarks, I may be among the few who see things a little differently because your situation seems to echo my story so closely in many aspects. Getting discovered and making a fresh vow to each other. She then tries to avoid getting caught again and tries to get back in touch with him. After that, the cycle started over. I'm aware that it's an awful roller coaster, and your wife can't see everything because she's in the fog. I have a few things to share. Because her feelings for you weren't as thrilling, novel, or enjoyable as they were for him at this time, keep in mind that she feels, that her love for him is genuine and that she was able to rewrite history regarding her feelings for you. Even so, she might have made illogical statements. Despite her well-considered decision to enter into marriage, there have been and will continue to be times when she feels as though she should give up. Discover the OM. It works similarly to a drug that gives you intense, real-time physical rushes. Because each time she saw his name appear on her phone, was excited to see him, or was with him, she would experience that exhilarating rush as the endorphins were released. Now that's all gone, and she primarily feels embarrassment, shame, remorse, etc. Instead, she probably has times when she just wants to see him again or cries in private. In a weak moment, she might even do so. It hurts so much to know that your wife is hankering after another man and to watch her act in that way. I must admit that it was quite gut-wrenching for me to be sleeping at night and hear her sobbing quietly in the adjacent room because she didn't see the arm. I had every right to be upset about it, but I also couldn't really hold her responsible. One of the repercussions was that she was suffering solely as a result of her own choices. Apart from the feeling, she also kind of taught herself to look for him. Consider this, all she needed to do to experience that emotional high for months was to go text, call, or see him. It developed into a habit that is particularly challenging to quit. You might even tell her that you recognize that she is likely having difficulty with this, if you can handle it. Secondly, it is imperative that she be held accountable for her deeds. She really needs to stay in treatment. She requires NC from the OM. She must also take care of herself. Errors truly aren't possible anymore. I disagree with many of the people here that say you can't treat her with respect because you've given her so many opportunities. But only if you're clear about your expectations of her and let her know that you won't put up with this kind of conduct again. Although I believe you did demonstrate to her that you were prepared and willing to let her go, I believe you have now likely reached the end of your second opportunity. Thank you for sharing your story, and I hope you'll do so in the future. I'm not looking forward to breaking bad news, but I must. I'll tell you a few of the things I did because I can't even begin to count how many things you did incorrectly. As you can see, my results are different from yours. My wife first informed me about the affair. Like you, I told her we were divorcing after taking too many steroids and leaving the house. Although the affair had ended, she was sad and had decided not to return to the OM. I informed her that we were splitting, and she became afraid for the future of our marriage. I wanted a divorce when I got back home. She was not my wife, even if she behaved like one when cooking for me. She was really upset with me when I refused to eat in spite of her want to sleep with me. The one and only time I saw the OM, I ended up spending the majority of the day in jail and the beginning part of the day in the hospital. After that, he didn't get in touch with my wife for a long time. While I was living there, my wife received the divorce papers that I had also filed for. She didn't say, well, that's it, I give up, either. Since she knew she would only have 60 days to persuade me to change my mind, she made the decision to convince me to give her another chance. She did, too. Ultimately, I decided to call off the divorce and made an effort to patch things up, but it fell apart when I discovered a small email she hadn't shared with me. Nothing was said in response to it at all, only from the OM. Before she could even say I'm sorry, we got divorced. What makes you and I different from each other? Not that I didn't adore it. I didn't want to divorce my ex-wife W because I loved her. Hell, there are some on this channel who might say I still adore her. The distinction is that I was able to inform her that this marriage is over, and she has to bring it back to life. I'm not going to take care of her. You have had to perform all of the saving thus far. That's the issue. The marriage shouldn't ever need to be saved by the BS. If their ultimatum isn't fulfilled, they ought to issue a divorce. The WS must act to keep the marriage intact. Not the BS, not you. Recognize. Opus answers. She has granted me full access to all of her communication channels and barred the OM from any conversation. It is necessary to have an NC letter. I'll assign that task for early this week. She's met every member of her family as well as a few of our close friends. It appears that she is being open and honest. When she is not with me, she does inform me of her whereabouts, which is typically corroborated by other sources. She doesn't communicate with any of her male pals anymore, but she does appear regretful and apologetic. I would prefer that she put more effort into attempting to mend our marriage, but she isn't. She's willing to talk for a while about the specifics of what we actually accomplished last night. She has also informed me numerous times that she is the issue. She is aware that her discontent stems from a shattered part of herself rather than our marriage. She is putting a lot of effort into understanding that aspect of herself. I believe that things are headed in the correct direction for the following reasons. I'm reading the comments on this post, and I'll take appropriate action if she gets in touch with him once more. In addition, I will continue to update this thread during our voyage, no matter how things turn out. She was lost in the fog, which is what caused all of her emotions that evening. She attempted to persuade herself of those points in order to rationalize and justify her affair. She no longer feels the same way when we speak. Though it's not quite as strong as it was 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't say she doesn't have feelings for the OM or that she is completely in love with me. She must have loved me during our courtship, marriage, and the most of our union, in my opinion. I am not really sure why she stopped loving me. However, I believe it is related to her insecurity and her search for a source who would validate her worth. She also craves adventure, and I haven't been giving it to her. Finally, I believe that she is experiencing a kind of crisis in her life, feeling lost and doubting everything. My affection for her makes her feel as though she must battle for me as she is too confident in our marriage. If I don't do the 180, I'm not quite sure how to achieve this dynamic. Unless she breaks her word to me going forward, I will not perform the 180-degree turn. This week, I'll have her write an NC letter. So, what tips do you have for promoting that dynamic? Where I am at the moment. Regretfully, I do believe that there is some validity to the claim that I am a beta. Though not to the extreme that others are portraying, I do believe that dynamic would be helped if I were more self-assured, forceful, and perhaps even a little bit selfish. She's expressed her desire to pursue me, but I'm not sure how to start the conversation right now. I would really welcome advice on this in a happy marriage. In addition, I believe that one of the worst aspects of our relationship before to the breakup was that she felt more like she needed me than desired me. Still, my point was that she was uncertain about herself and was looking to others for attention in order to feel valuable. Since hanging out together is a simple way to fall in love, I do believe it's crucial that we be friends. That's how she first developed feelings for me, as well as how she came to adore my feedback. Opus, I'm not sure what guidance you're looking for at this stage, except from other people's approval of your strategy. Uncertain. I hope you have luck if that's what you want. I continue to wish you well. I find it difficult to see the route that will get you there, though. All I did was pray for you. You can only be delivered from yourself by God. I hope you're correct. I believe you to be insane. 5 weeks is not much. Half a year is the first significant achievement. An gave you and your spouse a call and let them know how horrible your marriage is. As you heard it and stood there, you believed that everything you had done was correct. Once she feels that everything has settled, your wife will return to Am and avoid him. You will repeatedly discover the truth, yet all you will do is keep giving her opportunities. She will never permanently leave you. One more thing. Because finding a man like you is too difficult. What are your thoughts on this doormat story, guys? Where did things go wrong here? Check out the other articles, leave a comment below, and subscribe and bell.